Our opening weekend of GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS Sprint Cup, is marching through. We've had free practice, which was topped by Mauro Engel's Mercedes AMG this morning, and now the pre-qualifying session is ready to get underway. It's another 1 hour of track time for the pro teams. They only really got half an hour earlier on because the first 30 minutes of free practice dedicated to the silver graded drivers only, those in the Silver Cup. So they're a little bit behind the 8 ball, but you could argue a pro can adapt quicker than anybody, and therefore they don't need perhaps quite so much track time. One thing you don't need is damage, because at the end of the day there's going to be the qualifying session from 4:35 until just before 5 o'clock, with the 2 grids being formed for the 2 races. That's the car that was quickest this morning, where Mauro Engel drove the reigning champion car from the Sprint Cup. He and Lucas Auer are back to defend the title. They were the overall champions as well as sprint champions last year. Lucas Auer behind the wheel of the car. David Addison and Joe Osborne trackside. It's not quite as bright and sunny, Joe, as it was earlier. It's a bit more muggy, but it maybe is a little bit cooler out there for the teams.
Yeah, I think the air temp has dropped. Humidity has gone up massively, but track temp has actually continued to climb. We're now at 33 degrees track temp. It was mid-20s earlier. As we look at the Branch Hatch circuit, 3.9 kilometers, 9 corners. You've got 2 distinct parts. You've got the Indy track, turns 1, 2, 3, and then the GP 4 to 9. Absolutely phenomenal circuit. One of the best in the world, and most of the drivers we spoke to in that first free practice seem to agree with that statement, I would say.
We had a couple of cars. This is one of them that picked up some damage. This is the Santa-Loc Audi that Laurens Lequerture put off the road late in the session. The damage actually wasn't that bad, was it?
It really wasn't. When you see what happened in a second, the replay here, car bouncing wide on exit, it then rotates as only one tyre is touching the tarmac. It then nearly gets away with it, but you'll see the rear just skim across the foam blocks, which then spins it around, and it goes for a second impact more on the right-hand side of the car. You can see the rear wing already damaged and taken off, and that second hit really cemented that problem. I walked over to the garages. The Santa-Loc team were hard at work. The driver's actually helping out as well, but looks like that car is back in one piece and can live to fight another day.
Co-driver Ivan Klimenko looking on, and that car first up, they'll probably just do a lap or 2 just as a shakedown, make sure nothing's going to fall off, make sure it's all been glued back together properly, and then they can concentrate on the run plan for the session. Yeah,
most probably. It depends on the damage. If it was just that rear wing, then the mechanics were probably be happy just to send it straight into a run. But if it had tweaked any of the suspension or the more important parts of the geometry, they would want to do what's called an out and in. So you literally go out straight in, they'll give everything a wobble and check it's tight, and then they can finish that session.
Now we saw Ivan Klimenko standing by number 26 Audi. We can hear from him about that damage. We can also hear from Bryn Lucas, who's looking after the pit lane for us this weekend.
Well, Ivan, it's always important to come out of a practice session without any damage. There was damage to your car. What can you tell us? How is it looking now?
Well, the mechanics fixed the car. It's still competitive. We are going to be able to go for pre-qualifying. Now we put Lorenzo, see how it goes.
You say they fixed the car. What exactly were they had to work? I know there's a rear wing damage, but what else? Suspension?
Oh, now we fixed the rear bumper, see how it's going on with suspension now, and yeah.
Good luck, thank you.
So proof of the pudding is about to be eaten as the car heads towards the timing line at the pit exit. The car's being held. The fast lane is open. We're about 10 seconds away from getting pre-qualifying underway. It acts as effectively a second session, but it could, if we weren't able to run qualifying for whatever reason, be used as the qualifying session. And if a driver weren't able to do the regulation laps in the qualifying session, the fact that you have done laps in pre-qualifying gets you around that regulation as well. So we're in business. Track is going to be busy. We have 30 cars for our opening Sprint Cup round. Remember, GT World Challenge Europe, part of the global GT World Challenge with America, Australia and Asia, all of which have been in business already this year, as the field rumbles out on track, and 1 hour of activity is underway.
Yeah, 30 cars, all with the same focus here, not just to go fast, but to find some free track, which is difficult with so many fast GT3 cars around here. 30 in total, split around this narrow, short, twisty, undulating Branch Hatch circuit. Great for the spectators here as well. So many good viewing points. It's almost like a natural amphitheatre on the Indy track. You can park your car up and just watch from the south bank. And then also you can walk all the way around this circuit. You could be stood literally 10 metres on the inside of this barrier here at Hawthorne's T5 as the cars thunder through into the reprofiled Westfield when A1GP came here to slow this corner down somewhat, and it's actually made it challenging. It's almost changed the accident point from the entry to the exit now. So yes, it's slower, but it's definitely not any easier.
One or two of the cars going out a little bit late. The Rutronic Porsche number 96, the Patrick Niederhauser and Sven Müller entry, just getting ready. Tires are fixed. 112 will be Arthur Rougier, who drove in the second part of free practice, replacing James Kell. James Kell presumably will do the second half of this session.
Yeah, we said earlier, didn't we? You don't want the car in the pits unnecessarily not learning anything, so you don't want to be swapping drivers more than you have to. So if you can just run half and half and keep the drivers happy that way, I think that's a clever way of doing it. Arthur Rougier had a very strong Paul Ricard, and for me was almost one of my drivers of the race. Wasn't on the overall podium, but they did get a class podium. And I thought his pace and that pace of the car, new team to McLaren CSA, I thought they did a sterling job as we go to their sister car, the 111.
Which is being driven by Jim Pla. Now, normally you get used to seeing Jim Pla in Mercedes, whether GT3 or GT4 or GT2, but he has switched away from regular team of Acodis ASP and regular co-driver Jean-Luc Beaubelic to join CSA. He, going back to 2022, was a class champion within the GT4 European Series. Jim Pla, very, very quick, former single-seater racer. We know he's quick in a GT car, but for some reason he's never really been taken on by a bigger team or a quicker co-driver. This season could be the making of it.
Really could, especially with a single-seater background. If you were a driver with that sort of CV, what GT car would you choose? It probably would be the McLaren.
Yeah.
Why? Carbon fibre tub. It's the only GT3 car out there with that carbon fibre chassis, which all single-seaters are. It's a mid-engine car bolted to the rear of that. Again, that's what a single-seater is. Very aero-dependent car, like a single-seater. So I think you're right. This could be a real standout year for Jim Pla. Seen him be very, very quick in a Mercedes. Can he copy and paste that pace into a McLaren?
Repetition of pace. I buzz for repetition. Because this is pre-qualifying and the times matter, track limits become more important as well. So we're not just getting warnings, we're getting cancellation of lap times. We weren't having that in free practice. They were constant warnings, but now the lap times are disappearing. So you go wide at Graham Hill Bend, turn 3, the lap's done. There might only be 9 corners to it, but you know so early in the lap that you don't need to persevere with it because it's instant up on the timing screen, lap's gone.
Yeah, and that's where we're approaching now. Watch the exit of this corner. You can see how wide and sort of enticing it is to the driver, and that's going to be a problem they're all going to have out the back here. It's less of a problem because after the white line you may have a little bit of curb, as you can see on the inside. That was our only hot spot outside of the first 3 corners, wasn't it? The apex of T7 was also one there. As you see, Chris Lulham, 2 purple sectors. This car was fastest for parts of free practice earlier, struggling with the bump there, a bit wide on entry, won't be able to get on the throttle as early as they want, but this is going to be a strong lap. Fastest this morning, 23.1. As we break the beam, it's going to be slightly off that, 24.2. So fastest at the moment, but I expect that to keep getting faster, almost by maybe over a second. I think we might get into the high 22s by the end of this session.
Chris Lulham and Thierry Vermeulen in the Gold Cup. So yeah, we're talking about where they are overall, and they'd love an outright win, but the Gold Cup is the main priority as Aurelian Panis goes across the timing line in number 10. The Boots and VDS Mercedes AMG goes second, 76 thousandths of a second shy of Chris Lulham. And Ezequiel Perez Companc has gone third in number 99 Audi. Live in the old dog yet. I'm talking about the car there, not Ezequiel. I know he's experienced, but the Audi is the old dog in question. But still in the right hands, competitive, as will this car be. The Santalok entry for the very, very rapid Gilles Magnus.
Yeah, fastest of anyone in Sector 1, looking good so far through Sector 2, slightly wide, but he'll keep his foot buried there. Sven Muller's gone fastest now in the Porsche. Talking of life in an old dog, that 911 keeps going, doesn't it? Sector 2 coming now, green, not fastest, but still strong, real wide. You could see the 11s, there would have been a 10th or 2 lost. Down this straight, the speed will be down. Last corner now, over this big bump, seems to ride it well. Let the car flow out wide, all the way to the line now. Where's Gilles Magnussen going to get? He's currently, this is his first fly, so we don't have him on the scoreboard. He's about to cross the line, 24.1, P2, nice lap.
Excellent, so that puts him 97 thousandths shy of Sven Muller, and this was the big moment at Stirling's then, that cambered left-hander, slightly banked looks okay to that point, but then out he goes.
Yeah, no real oversteer to say, so it's almost like he just didn't put enough lock on, or understeer of the car forced him out there. The drivers have been getting greedy, running wide there to try and keep the speed up, but I think that was detrimental to his lap time. So if he could tidy that up, maybe the 10th that he's off pole position is there on the cards.
There's no track limit warning nor cancellation of the lap for running wide there, so I think Sterling's is kind of self-policing, isn't it? If you do go wide, you're losing time, there's no advantage to be gained, whereas there can be an advantage at other parts of the racetrack here. Now look at this, a very rapid Ferrari with Leclerc at the wheel of it, because Arthur Leclerc has now done the absolute best first sector, new to Brands Hatch, hustles it out of Sterling's, that's how you should do it, personal best in sector 2. This is going to get him there or thereabouts. He needs to be in the low 124s to be up near the front, and in the high 123s to be the fastest of all. He comes up towards the beam, 22, 23, 24.3, only 7th in the end. So it was a decent lap, but the third sector got away from him, and the whole car's got away from him at turn 1 at Paddock Hill Bend.
Yeah, you can see him taking his hand off. He's done that a couple of times since we were on board. Not happy with something, his frustration there, and a snap of oversteer right in the middle of the corner. His teammate Vince Abrill's gone 4th now, ultimate fastest in sector 3 as well. Look at that McLaren coming past, big oversteer there and on exit. Watch this from the outside. You can see he's already wide on the dirtier part of the track. We're just going to kiss the gravel trap with the left-hand wheels now, and he does well to not go in any deeper. Almost got some grip off the lip of the gravel trap there to push him back onto the circuit.
You saw 007 on the windscreen, which is the position the car is, not the competition number, but where it is in the classification on that Lumirank display. But 007 on the Ferrari. Ian Fleming would be turning in his grave, I suspect. Here comes Kelvin van der Linde up towards the timing line now. He was briefly fastest in free practice this morning. The BMW, a solid lap, 6th fastest. So you've got Porsche, Ferrari, Audi, Ferrari, BMW right now, the order.
Yeah, and we've got some purple sectors lighting up the screens as well, and they're mixed at the moment as we see Vince Abrill with 2 of those purple sectors go P1, 23.7. The pace is sharpening. Yeah, it is, isn't it? Number 76 there is Daniel Ali, new to Brands Hatch, new to Barwell Motorsport, new to a Lamborghini. We saw his brother race for Barwell in the Endurance Opener. Daniel Ali will do a selected Sprint Cup event, having raced in LMP3 in the Asian Le Mans Series through the winter, and the Barwell car now with really the drivers learning the track all the time, heading out onto the Grand Prix loop. Vincent Abril then fastest by 0.3 of a second. That's a good margin. Yeah, I'm just wondering, did they put a set of tyres on that? They don't have to run new tyres. Huge snap of oversteers. It hit the bump there. We saw that earlier, didn't we? But the car's really unsettled. This could still be a very quick lap. P3 at the moment. Can we get any higher than that? We can. P2 now just 0.14 behind the sister Ferrari of Abril. Different teams, but similar output for those 2 Ferraris as we see Charles Wirtz getting ready to jump aboard the WRT BMW. You talk about tyres and whether teams are running new tyres or not. What we sort of can put to one side is a fuel load, because the regulation is that all the cars had to start this session with 90 litres of fuel. So nobody can just run a small amount of fuel and go for a time with a lighter car. You've got to start with 90 litres. That's mandated under the regulations for the session. I'd like to see how they enforce that as a team. That's what you're always trying to find is grey area, yeah. Exactly. And the only physical way would be to pump the fuel out, which would take some time to do 90 litres. But a good move nonetheless. Otherwise, you are going to get some teams just going for one quick lap in the case this does become the qualifier. Can you trace it through the refuelling rig? Can you see how much that has dispensed at a given time? It can, but the teams normally refuel the cars pre-session just with dump churn.
Right,
so,
right.
There's actually some investigation I need to do after this session to find out how the teams can cheat on that one. That's your lunchtime project. Right, we've now got a Ferrari 1-2. Konsta Lapalainen has taken this car up to 2nd. Another absolute best in Sector 1, but slower in Sectors 2 and 3 means that he is still 14 thousandths shy of Vincent Abril. Those Ferraris out of different teams. You've got AF Corsa versus Emile Frey Racing, but in kind of Ferrari colours. Normally you find Emile Frey Racing in the family blue colours rather than Ferrari red, but it is 2nd fastest for Konsta Lapalainen, 3rd Porsche, Sven Muller, 4th Audi,
for Gilles Magnus. And 5th BMW, Calvin van der Linde, with 6th at the moment, the best Mercedes AMG, Aurelien Panis. Now, this car of Lucas Auer is only 29th. He's not really done a representative lap time yet.
No, it really hasn't. I don't know if they're maybe bedding some brakes in, but he's best lap 3.9 seconds off the pace at the moment, so definitely something not there. You can see the splitter sparking. That is normal for the Mercedes. Titanium skid blocks hitting the floor rather than the more expensive carbon fibre bodywork. Again, sparking away there as it just bottoms out over the bumps. Car in front boxed as well, so that would be nice. Be slightly less traffic as they break the beam. Somewhere more representative, and he's going to go all the way up to 4th place. Much better from that windward Mercedes.
Yeah, that brings it back to the races, doesn't it, really? In terms of lap times being cancelled, we'll worry about them if it's a car that we've been looking at, because there are so many running wide, largely at Paddock at the moment. Paddock and then Graham Hill Bend, which is this corner that Lucas Auer is about to plunge into now. You drop down the hill. Here, coming out of Hawthorns, is the man that's quickest thus far, Vincent Abril. He's only quickest by 14 1/1000ths of a second, which is absolutely negligible around this lap, which is 2.4 miles or 3.9 kilometres, depending on which feels longer.
Yeah, it's an okay lap. It's not going to be an improvement, but Vince only got 10 minutes in the first session, so he'll just want to get some laps around here. Interestingly, every time I've seen a Ferrari going through Sheen T7, I haven't seen them using much apex curb, so I don't know if that's a car issue. They're not able to ride the curb, or the drivers are feeling that is the faster line to avoid that curb. But that's really one of the areas normally out on the GP track you can find some time as Engstler crosses the line in the Liquimoli Grassa GRT Lamborghini.
And he's 20th. There's more to come from the very rapid Luca Engstler, who made his name a bit like his father, Franz Engstler, initially as a touring car racer, won multiple TCR titles, mainly in Asia, TCR Malaysia as well as the Asian Championship. So it was a recent switch to GT and DTM style GT cars for Luca, but he's quick. That car was in the gravel in free practice, number 21. Kobe Powell's put it in the Paddock Hill Bend gravel, and he was behind the wheel of it when it came into the pit lane. So the former rallycrosser and his father, Koen Powell's, very quick rallycrosser back in his day, ready to go. So the Aston from the Contiu team heads out on track. There is a sparking Luca Engstler. This lap, he really is pushing.
Yeah, the car's bouncing all over the place there. It doesn't look particularly nice. Yes, you're going to get bottoming out, but that looks very softly sprung or damp there. He's using more of that apex curb I was saying the Ferrari's avoiding. It's quick, but it looks hard work at the moment. Jordan Pepper, teammate of this car, did go P1 for a while of the session earlier today as well. So we know the car's quick, we know the team's quick, we know the drivers are quick, but maybe a bit more drivability needed from that car. Good amount of squat though. You can see the rear really hunker down and give him some drive up to the line. Does he improve? Yes, he does. 13 places higher, up to P7.
Still 4/10, nearly half a second off top as Lucas Auer hangs it out over the curb coming out of Stirling's, which has been one of the more dramatic parts of the circuit today. People running wide over the curb. Luca Engstler has gone through. Lucas Auer is heading up towards the line, and 4th fastest. Good sector 1, not so good sector 2, stays 4th in the end. That lap time of 24.1 as against a 24.099, so a slower lap. Luca Engstler we talked about as the most recent improver. Quite a lot of cars in the pit lane right now.
Yeah, a lot of tyre pressure adjustments going on as well, so looks like the Ferrari here is about to be released. I'm trying to see who's on board as Abril. The lollipop went up and then down. That's so hard for the car controller. I don't know if that was the Barwell Lamborghini, probably just been released 4 garages further up, so it was clear and then suddenly it was not. Good reactions from car controller and driver there, but just seeing if that's Rivera or Abril in the car as they leave. It's now switched to Rivera, so let's see what he can do after Vincent Abril's P1 lap so far. Charles Wirtz aboard the race-winning car last time out, GT World Challenge Endurance. We're on a slow lap at the moment. How do I know that? I can see his delta saying 5 seconds slower, so he's just lining up a lap at the moment. He might want to drop off the back of this Emerald Frey Ferrari, who is also prepping a lap. So yeah, we're just getting ourselves a gap as we come out. I can see that just the top corner of his dash as well. TC is low, so this looks like he should be in a place where he's comfortable with the car. Quick adjustment there. I think that was just the airflow actually, so just driver into Paddock Hill. So watch the car dive down the hill, gets the apex perfectly, doesn't go too wide. Track limits are good, braking under the bridge at Druids, all the way down to 2nd gear, rotate the car, In we go, very smooth steering input, looking very nice. Slight snap of oversteer, over to the right. Use the curb on the right to help open the corner. Use the curb on the left. Don't be illegal here. That's turn 3. That's Graham Hill where the track limits are. Here we're braking just at the one board. Don't turn in too early because it's a late apex. The apex is now just drifted wide a bit. You can see the same from the Ferrari. Now the longest straight of the lap, down Pilgrim's Drop. We'll be getting all the way up to 250 kilometers an hour, 6th gear, and then it's a short, sharp brake, 4th, off the brake, roll in, power on. This is where the circuit feels very tight, no room for error, very small exit curbs. Westfield, we want to use a lot of the apex curve, hop it over the inside, and then we file down Dingledale into Sheen. How much curb we're going to use on the right? There's a lot to be had, and we have all of it. I like that. Over to the right, last left of the lap, Sterling, lots of camber, roll it in. This is where people are running wide onto the dirt. We have a little nibble, but we don't eat too much of it. Last corner, clearways. Again, a short, sharp brake, off the brake, roll the speed in, 4th gear, 160 kilometers an hour, hard on the throttle, and then get back over to the inside. Why? It's the shortest line to the finish line, so we can find a bit of time as he crosses the line, and we go P10, 24.8. So that was a good lap, but we're still 1 second off Vince Abril.
Yeah, and 6:10 slower than he had done earlier on. You just see Vincent Abril looking on for the pit lane, but Charles Witt slightly slower. So a solid lap as you look now at Louis Pret, who was really good, really encouraged for McLaren, having never been here before earlier on. The McLarens were good at Paul Ricard, and as Andrew Kokodi said to me earlier on in the day, we've had a bit of a haircut on the BOP since Paul Ricard. So perhaps the BOP here not as kind to the McLarens, but Louis Pret looking very, very good at the moment because he is the fastest within gold, having recently gone quicker than Gilles Magnus by 65 thousandths of a second. This lap for Louis Pret, who is coached by the great Stefan Ortelli, ain't going to be any quicker, but at the moment it's about mileage as well for somebody new to a tough circuit.
Yeah, and their fastest McLaren as well, which is always a nice inter-team scalp to have as we look at one of the Boutsen VDS cars here. And yeah, these Mercedes so good through the high-speed sectors out the back of Brands Hatch. But yeah, I said it earlier, I just don't think Boutsen would have been so happy with their Paul Ricard. It'd be interesting to see where they can get themselves really this weekend. P11 at the moment for Panis. They're leading the Silver Cup, which is your main focus as a driver, but you always do have an eye on the overall classification as well.
Sandy Mitchell's put his Lamborghini up to 5th, number 78 Lamborghini Sandy Mitchell, a 123.9. So at the moment we have 23 cars covered by less than a second, and 2 of those are on an identical time to the 1,000th. Jens Klingman and Gustav Bergström in WRT run BMWs have both done a lap at 124.720. So we've got identical times to the 1,000th from cars out of the same team. Now that's impressive.
Yeah, you can't really have any complaints there as we see Ben Green, with a silver helmet, leaving the Ferrari. Not happy, something happened there. He's looking at a previous garage. Is a car being released into his path, but he was giving someone the death stare, wasn't he? I can't see any damage on the car. I'd expect to see damage on the left-hand side as we look at it if it was a pit incident, but definitely not happy about something.
And he's not been in for that long. I mean, he's got out of the car and walked away, and only now are we up to 46 seconds worth of a pit stop. So whatever happened must have happened, as you suggest, as he was coming in. Maybe as he tried to come in, a car was being released and he had to brake or something, so the death stare could have been at the team next door. Who is the team next door to Emil Frey? Rutronic, and here is a Rutronic Porsche. Now, do we have one of those cars on an outlet? You're looking at 97, 96. No, that's been out. So no, it doesn't stack up that necessarily it was a car being released.
No, we need Bryn, our gossip gatherer, to get down there and stir the pot and get us the inside scoop of that one as we see Perez there finishing the lap. P30, it's just so competitive round here. His last lap, 26.2, so half a second off their car's best, only 2 seconds off the fastest. But at the moment, that car is in last position. Yeah, 2 seconds covers 30 cars. That is pretty insane. But it does illustrate that Claude Sermon, the man who is the technical director of the championship, has got the BOP absolutely spot on for here. 14,000th between the Ferraris up at the front. Now, how's the Mustang getting on? Well, it sounds fantastic. Yusufa Vega is at the wheel of it. There's a car that's off the road, by the way, at Graham Hill Bend. It's a Boutsen VDS Mercedes, so briefly a yellow will be triggered by that. As over the timing line goes the Grunt and Go Ford, and slower than Yusufa Vega was earlier on. 27th out of the 30.
again, he's somebody else learning about the track, learning about the car, and the team learning about the car and circuits, because they're coming here new to the Mustang project this year, the Haupt Racing Team squad, with no data.
Yeah, there's just an infinite amount of settings on these cars to generate the handling and balance the drivers want. So you're always working towards an end goal of a fast and drivable race car, but how you get there is the difficult story. As we see the 59 McLaren of Kirchhofer bouncing through the gravel trap at Paddock Hill, we do not see Kirchhofer make many mistakes, and he was in the gravel early, so that issue has happened under braking. We saw that car reliability issues at Paul Ricard, a gearbox issue. Was that a downshift issue? Did he not get the engine braking that he needed or required essentially there? It'd be interesting to get his feedback on that one. But working with Marvin a lot over the years, he is a metronomically good Germanic Swiss race driver that doesn't make mistakes.
No, you're right. You can put that one as a scoop. We've seen a mistake from Marvin Kirchhofer. Other drivers getting themselves ready. And Ben Green, who we saw giving a death stare to somebody in the pit lane. Let's try and unravel what happened in his pit stop. Bryn Lucas is down there for us. He's got Ben Green with him.
Well, Ben, how's the session gone for you? When you got out of the car, you seemed to be a little bit frustrated.
Everything's fine, just running through our setup changes, seeing what we can do with the car, and yeah, working through our program.
But other than that, it's all okay, because there did seem to be an element of frustration, of anger towards someone.
No, everything's fine. Consta drove some good laps before. I got a few laps just then, and now we rotate, so we carry on.
Thanks, man.
A job in the diplomatic corps, I think, beckons for Ben Green. Either that or your reading of a driver's sort of head gestures is different from others. But I would concur. He didn't look that thrilled when he got out of the car. I think Bryn's gone back for a second go at this now.
Yeah, he's not giving up, is he? I've been in the clerk's office with Ben actually after a bit of miscommunication out there, and I was in a car and basically here we go on board here with
the Mustang.
The same sort of issue as Kirchhofer, I would have assumed. That's why I was just checking what car we were on board with. But loose rear, I can't see any major issues apart from that as we get the outboard shot of the car skipping through the dust and then into the gravel. Good amount of opposite lock to save that, but becoming a bit of a hot spot there. And I'm just looking out the commentary window to see if I can see any reason why cars are struggling. Everyone's taking the normal line, can't see any oil, any grip change on entry, but what an angle of a 650, 700,000 euro car bouncing through the gravel trap. It looks quite good.
Look at the wing. Look at the rear wing wobbling left to right as the aero changes and it bounces through the gravel. It's certainly a bit cooler than it was earlier on in the day. I just wonder whether that's affecting people in any way as they head into that fast corner. Right, the session has not quite got to halfway, but we're not far off as you look at number 30 BMW here, which is the car that Gustav Bergström is driving for WRT. Gustav Bergström, somebody else new to Brands Hatch, having raced in Scandinavian Porsche and GT4 championships for many, many years, and he's out to get dive bombed, isn't he, there, because up the inside goes number 25, Gilles Magnus, who's rather commandeered the Santa Lock Audi. Gilles Magnus, who is managed by World Touring Car champion Rob Huff, and a very, very quick driver, Gilles, as we've seen in the past, winner of the Gulf 12 Hours last year.
Yeah, really quick and good driving by both there, because Graham Hill isn't always an overtaking spot, but the BMW easing out the throttle to make that job easier and safer for all. But look at these cars stream through. Wherever we pick a camera angle, there is at least 4 or 5 cars in shot there, and Gilles Magnus, like you said, doing a good job. He's the fastest Audi on track at the moment, and Audi have had a huge amount of success, not just here but in GT World Challenge over the years. And as we look at the Gold Cup as well, Louis Pret's car still topping the times from Adam Smalley's lap earlier, and yeah, they're doing a very, very good job, aren't they, all around.
So the Audi heads towards the timing line. Gilles Magnus still second in gold to Louis Pret, and he's 65 thousandths shy, although the majority of the improvements we've had early on, now it's as though the drivers, the teams are going for a proper run. Now they're after mileage, not necessarily a time.
Yeah, it's got warmer again, hasn't it? The sun's come back out. You can see the sun beating down and track temp getting higher, and that's the opposite to what performance needs. The lower the track temp, the faster these cars will go, and yeah, that could be the end of it. I just wonder if anyone's going to put a set of tyres on towards the end of this session, as that compulsory 90 litres of fuel runs out. Are they going to do a quali sim? Are they going to burn a set of tyres for vanity, but also for driver reference of knowing where the pace is at and what they can do? It'll be interesting to see that one later on. We're nearly halfway through this session, and after this, it gets serious. We go straight into qualifying. This is your last chance to make any setup changes before the momentum really shifts into points thinking.
What do we read into the best Mercedes AMG being only 7th at the minute? Because Mauro Engel has taken over from Lucas Auer. As you look at the Corvette of Jesse Salminautio, there's more to come, granted, when we get to qualifying. The Corvette, currently the Stellar Motorsport run car, is to be found 26th. That's still in its development, of course, but the Mercedes AMGs that have gone well around here in the past, not yet looking as quick as they would like to, nor actually the BMWs.
No, true on both points. The Mercedes point's interesting because they were fastest this morning, so the car around this track today has been quick, but as the temperatures come up, as that changed, as we go on board here with the Corvette, you can see those two struts in the middle make it easy to identify this car, and it's going to come into shot now as it comes through the back of the CSA, McLaren, Porsche behind it as well. And yeah, this Chevy with Stella's only going to get stronger as the year goes on. Every mile they do, and they'll just get the learning, and they'll be able to get this car in a better place performance-wise, I'm sure, very quickly.
In many ways, it doesn't really look like a Corvette, does it? It breaks the tradition of Corvette shapes over the years, but it's perhaps a more aero-friendly type car than the grunt-and-go Corvettes of years past. Jesse Salminautio we've seen in GT World Challenge Europe in the past, as well as in Lamborghini Super Trofeo. Quick driver, and heading up towards the timing line. Came out of single-seaters as well. Spanish F4, German F4 goes through. And on that lap, a little bit slower by 0.6 or so from what the car did earlier on.
Yeah, it's got Sven Muller behind, the Porsche behind Sven Muller. Last lap for him was a 25.4. So actually similar lap times on the last lap from these two cars, but Sven Muller is 3rd overall, and this Corvette's 26. So again, just shows you these guys have now transformed into a race run. So ultimate lap times drop off, but drivability is now the question they will be asking of their car. Can I do this for 25 to 30 minutes in the races tomorrow? And if I can't, what do I want to change to make my race result as good as possible?
More and more drivers heading for the pit lane, which means that as we get to the end of the first half of the session, in some cases a driver change is imminent. Mauro Engel is in. Cesar Gazot takes over from Aurélien Panis. Simon Gachet is going to take over from Jim Pla, and Thierry Vermeulen will give way potentially to Chris Lullen, although that Ferrari has fallen down the order a little bit. Thierry Vermeulen will take it over at 13th. But again, that's a car fighting for its position within goal. But the point behind all of this is that more and more stops are happening, and the complexion, the feel of the second half of this session will be somewhat different maybe. 96 up towards the line then. This is a car that was good early on. Sven Muller 3rd, Porsche specialist, real plug-and-play driver. He's been coming like many out of the one-mate Porsche Championship into GT racing for Porsche, racing in British GT this season as well as Le Mans Cup, and there Patrick Niederhauser will be taking over that car when it makes its stop. Last lap for Sven Muller, personal best sectors 2 and 3, but not an improved lap time.
I don't know if he's just getting in the dirty air of that Corvette now in front and just starting to hamper himself. But there we have it this session. P3 at the moment. They were 8th earlier on this morning. Actually saw them doing an adjustment change on their front splitter when the Porsche can change the angle of that splitter. So they were trying to generate a bit more front downforce. There's a trade-off with drag, of course, but they'll be happy with that. As we look at the Paradigm competition car, mechanic getting to work on the rear right. It's probably a roll bar change, how quick he did that, so he can stiffen or soften the rear roll bar, which can transform the feeling of the car, can give it a bit more traction, or likewise can keep a bit more weight on the front and give you a bit more front end. So quite a strong tool. On most GT cars, you have a front and a rear rod to play with as well.
Now, the Lamborghinis were looking quick this morning. The best at the moment is actually 78 from Barwell, but this is 63 from Grasser of Jordan Pepper. And the South African, who absolutely adores this circuit, comes up towards the line. And let's see what this lap pans out to be. Down in Sector 1, down in Sector 2, stays 6th fastest. But again, different teams are going to be looking at different things now. And it's, as we've made the point, not just about chasing a time. Mileage, getting the car set up for qualifying, because to go back to a point we made this morning, it's not the widest of circuits, therefore overtaking is not as easy as it is elsewhere, therefore you've got to qualify well, therefore this is where you need to get the car absolutely bang on the money.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with the race runs, which will be important as well as the tyre wear around here, there's a very uneven distribution of lefts and rights. 9 corners, 6 of which are right-handers and only 3 are left. So you end up running a staggered setup. Normally cars are square, we would say, so left and rights are the same setup. Here you almost approach with a sort of a NASCAR mentality of different toes and cambers per corner to try and help that tyre wear be even. Because if you're turning left less often, the tyre wear isn't even, so you can negotiate that and go a bit more aggressive on the right-hand side tyres effectively. As we look at top speeds through the last corner clearways, this car, the 63 car, fastest through there, 161 kilometers an hour. So this next right-hander they're approaching, that car is staying above 160 kilometers an hour. So you can see how tight that corner is. These cars are seriously fast.
Yeah, through clearways into Clark Curve, up towards the timing line now goes the Lamborghini. Jordan Pepper's lap time is a 24.1, so just fractionally down on what he was doing earlier. Sven Muller has not come in. Patrick Niederhauser therefore awaits. This is 97, which is the sister car for Ishan Pieris to give way to Luke Hartog, who was very quick in his stint this morning, and indeed quick at Paul Ricard. 78, the best of the Lamborghinis, Hugo Cook and Sandy Mitchell. It's a car that draws attention to itself in lots of ways, partly because of the livery, but also because it's got 2 quick Brits. Hugo Cook, second generation GT racer, Sandy Mitchell, Lamborghini factory driver. Hugo Cook, the team proud to accept, was the 3rd fastest driver in his stint at Silverstone a week ago. Now, all right, different circuit, different championship, but you're still up against some very good pro manufacturer drivers in British GT.
Yep, same car, same tyre, similar BOP, so definitely relevant information. Go on board, you can just see as soon as they touch the dirt, they need to go. Let's have a look at his speed through this last corner. We saw 161, the top for Engsler in a sister car, having to slow down to a sub 140, so not able to carry the speed around there anywhere near the Grasso Lamborghini, so maybe difference on setup or maybe just slight delay on our speed would be my guess on that one.
Bit of a wobble. Hugo Cook fights the car into paddock, gets away with it. Nice recovery. Let's see whether that compromises the first sector.
Yeah, that's what we've been seeing. The problem into turn 1, the rear of the car is very loose for people. We have now got a tailwind into turn 1. I think that's the difference from session 1. The wind is picked up, is now blowing the cars into turn 1, so they're less efficient as he breaks the beam for sector 1. How does it look? It's an okay sector, not the best. Goes in a bit deep there as well as he getting distracted by that Ferrari. That's an easy thing around here at Brands Hatch, is to focus on the car in front rather than what you should be in. That Ferrari dives out the way very nicely. The 52 car there jumping fully out the way, so it doesn't compromise Hugo at all through the first fast to these rights out the back. We've got 3 in quick succession. Here's the second one at Westfield. Lots of curb, rides it well, picks the throttle up. V10 screaming away as we shift up through the gears through Sheen. This last fast right of 3. Car riding the curb so well. Look at the steering input. You can see how relaxed he is with his arms as we go to 32. Charles Wirtz, race winner last time out, like I've said, taking the tyres off that car. I wonder what they're doing with that one. That's interesting that they don't want to maximise their run time in this session.
Yeah, the BMW's not really as yet coming alive. You can anticipate they'll be there or thereabouts for qualifying, but bodywork coming off the front. Replay here of 97. Now, Luke Hartog has only just taken over that car, so whether that's him or Ishan Pieris from earlier on, we know not. But the net result, either way, is that that is a big wide moment coming through Sheen Curve, and there's gravel everywhere, there's dust in the air. Porsche's always used to be very good around the Brands Hatch Rallycross track, but that didn't incorporate Sheen Curve. It does now, as 97 from the Rutronic team finds a bit of tarmac. I get the feeling that might have been Luke Hartog, actually, but net result, he's back on track. Hopefully that's not done any damage to the splitter.
That's a Hartog moment in your mouth, isn't it?
It's have another go at that. It was so good.
Well, so lined up. And yeah, as a driver, they're the ones that you hope the team don't see on the TV, because you could have got away with that one. I'll start again.
That was Joe Osborne who died today. Right, so number 97 Porsche carries on in the session. Luke Hartog and Isham Pires, who did the first half of it, now look Hartog behind the wheel and expect it to come up the order. Number 50, back on board. Thomas Neubauer has taken over from Arthur Leclerc. Now, bear in mind, Thomas Neubauer did win outright here back in, 2019 as a silver. And we've had other silver victories in the past, like the AF Corsa Pierre-Alexandre Jean-Louis de Pau Ferrari. So, qualify well, and you never know what might happen. But Neubauer is a good bet in this car. He and Leclerc, I think, are going to be a good combination.
Yeah, I think so. And at the moment, he only needs to find basically half a tenth to make it a Ferrari 1, 2, 3. And can he do even better? He's catching that 76 Lamborghini at an alarming rate in his mind. So is he going to get the end of this lap compromised? I think he is, because he's now 2 or 3 lengths behind it as we go back on board. And unless he can fly down the inside here, we're going to be compromised, and we are. And now what does he do? Oh, he gets the chance to get down the inside, and at least his next lap will be clear as they run side by side under the bridge. The 76 Lamborghini tucking in behind. What's Neubauer going to do? He looks very steady. Is he coming into the pits? He is. Drivers will be practicing pit entry. It's hard as a chicane, and now you get down to the 50 kilometers an hour, loosening the belts. You cannot undo the belts, but you can loosen one hand on the wheel at all times. Stopping at the AF pit garage. Looks like they're going to do a driver change as well. So Leclerc, they're getting in, helping Neubauer out. Got to get the driver in and fully ready to go in less than 20 seconds, because that's what the mechanics will be doing, all 4 tyres in the race tomorrow.
And of course, these are what you might call natural pit stops, as fast as you can do them. So places can be won or lost, depending on how well you go in the pits. And that's as much down to the driver not overshooting or not forgetting to unplug a cable, and making sure that everything is as seamless as possible for the incoming driver.
Yeah, exactly. It's where things can go wrong when you start to panic, and you just need to practice. And again, we're seeing the same here. Engel getting out, a bit slow to get out there. Looked like something maybe got stuck. Our getting in slightly smaller in height, so they will have to do a pedal adjustment. The pedals are on a set of sliders, so you can slide them backwards and forwards. The seats now are fixed, so the seat never moves. Mechanic just getting on the radio there. I think he's actually speaking to the engineer, saying we're good to release the car. Little shake of the head as well, so not happy about something. But that car's been in the pits for over a minute now, so that isn't a very quick driver change or car change there.
99 heading up towards the line, the Attempto Audi. This is the car of Ezekiel Perez compang Alex Arca. And Alex Arca is behind the wheel. That was slightly slower than it did early on by about half a second, but again, mileage is what they're after. I was going to ask you this in free practice, but what is this blue cylindrical thing just near the number on the right-hand side of the car?
It's a drinks bottle, so it's an aluminium drinks bottle, and it's in upside down, and it goes into a holder, which then goes into a pump, into a pipe, into your mouth. So on the steering wheel, there will be a drinks button where the driver simply presses and dispenses that water. I think they've got up high to try and keep it in some airflow, because depending on where the teams get it, it's like drinking a cup of tea essentially after a while. It gets to about 50 degrees, so yes, it's wet, but is it refreshing? Negative on that front. So yeah, and it's actually a very clever system, expensive system, a couple of €1,000, because obviously it's motorsport, but magnetic, so you can literally just pull it out and put a fresh one in a driver change. Yeah. And we nearly saw it coming out as he poked over the exit curb there at Westfield.
Now, we have got one car under investigation for something other than track limits. The Jim Pla and Simon Gachet McLaren, number 111, being looked at for a possible pit lane infringement. Under investigation for that. 21 minutes and counting. Still to go.
Interesting on that one. Could be too many people working on the car. Could be improper conduct with the release of the car. So they will hopefully just get a slap on the wrist and no more serious penalty than that. But this Audi, again, look how nervous the car is on entry. That's 4 different manufacturers we've seen struggling through turn 1, and I think it can only be the tailwind into turn 1 that is starting to catch these drivers out.
35 Aston Martin then hustles on. That's the Enrique Chavez Mateo Villagomez car. Mateo Villagomez is at the wheel of it. They're 19th in the times. Villagomez, last year's French GT champion for GT4 cars, making the step up to GT3. And coming through Sheen Curve, there's more dust hanging in the air. So somebody up the road, potentially, has had a moment. The car directly ahead on the racetrack is number 10 of Cesar Gazot. So it could well have been Cesar that ran a little bit wide at Sheen Curve and kicked up the gravel.
can see he's coming into the pit lane because he's already loosening his belts, and I'm not one to dot people in, as you know,
But
that isn't allowed. So he'll just have to blag it that he had an itch somewhere in his midriff, and that's what he was touching. But he's having to do that because look how early they are in pit lane. He hasn't got the time from pit entry to his box to do it, and that's obviously what they're deciding to do. So they may need to try and rethink that one, because race control will not be happy with that.
the Mustang through the dust cloud of now Romain Andriolo at the wheel of that car. Somebody else news of Brands Hatch comes down now into clearways, into Clark Curve.
See his driver display there. Looks like saying a yellow flag in sector 3. I can't see anything there, so it's clear now. But yeah, again, we said it earlier, didn't we? So many things for the drivers to look at here. It's easy to get distracted looking at top speed. Slightly down this morning, we saw 249 as a top speed, which comes just before turn 5. 247. We see a bit of a mixture of cars there, but the BMW's dominating. Van der Linde from pit lane saying he's not sure what they'll be able to do this weekend. Top 6 is their goal, but they won a race here last year, so I think he might be selling Bryn a slight dummy there.
Or plead for a BOP adjustment, because you know what drivers are like, or teams can be like. Number 97 Porsche we saw in the gravel earlier on. Luke Hartog has now hauled it up a couple of spots. Goes 28. There's more to come from him. Riding on board then with the car that's ahead of Hertog in the times, 10th up. Then it's the Mustang. Romain Andriolo at the wheel of the car then, coming out of Westfield. And the single-seater racer of years past comes then towards clearways, as up towards the line is the number 19 Lamborghini then, the Ivan Ekelchik Baptiste Moulin car. And Ivan Ekelchik goes through. So that is 21st, just improved, in fact, to go up the order.
Yeah, they'll be slightly happy with that, won't they? When you start to work out what drivers are trying to target and what they should be doing, they're okay. They're 4th in class, which is not bad. Obviously, it's a very competitive class, 11 cars in that, with some very quick drivers up and down the field. But they'll be wanting a bit more, and that's where it's good being a 2-car team. The sister car, the 63 car, is up in 6th place, so they'll be able to look at the data and the video and work out what the differences are and try and close that gap down.
Quirkily, we have a Ferrari at either end of the order at the minute, fastest and slowest. Jeff Machiels has taken over number 52, as we have a yellow in the first sector. That could well be a car off at Paddock.
Correct. Number 64, deep in the gravel, actually.
Right, that's the Mustang, isn't it? Again, it went through the gravel earlier. Yeah, Jeff Machiels is at the foot of the times. Alessio Rivera is at the top. Joe is peering out of our window. Red flag has been called. So the Mustang, which is a big, heavy car to move, has triggered a red flag, and the session is stopped.
Yeah, everyone down to 80 kilometres an hour. It actually looks like the Mustang could even just be touching the wall. We saw it, like you said, David, go in earlier. The rear of the car's so loose. It's just rotated 180 degrees on him. 16 minutes remaining. We're going to get back green. For how long? Yeah, look, we're in the wall pretty hard, actually.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And it's gone in forwards. It's bounced off there, and driver okay, but there's a huge amount of damage there. And without sounding too brutal, the team's second thought after the driver is okay, thumbs up, we know we're okay, is are we going to get this car out? We're out for qualifying at 4:35, aren't we? So we've got 3.5 hours until then, and there looks to be a lot of damage there. And I always worry with single car entry, what spares do they have? But yeah, look at the damage on the front there, and the foam blocks have done a job, but that must have been a fairly big impact.
The clock stops for this because it is pre-qualifying. So that car is to be removed.
You can see the tyre marks through the gravel. It's gone in very early. You can see the racing line on the inside, and the tyre marks that you lead back to the rear of that Ford Mustang are a long, long way off. It's had an issue under braking of some form, and it hasn't carried the trajectory it needed. We go on board here, so next time we hit the brakes, we're going to be going straight for this red part of the signage, and it just doesn't seem to get any rotation whatsoever. And I think it was a mixture of a few things. The car actually lifting up quite high there, wasn't it? And yeah, just a bit of an instability, from the rear, and then the front didn't seem to bite, and then we were off the rubber, off the grip, and really just a passenger. And gravel trap, yes, slows some speed, but watch this car lift up as it bounces off the barrier. Front axle like 3-4 foot clear, and maybe even higher. It was actually quite close to having a very lazy roll over there as well.
Now, confirmation from the stewards that the clock should not have stopped. So this is still actually live, the session. The clock has picked up where it had left off. It had paused, but qualifying we stop, pre-qualifying we don't. So that's just been corrected and the clock is still ticking. And depending on how long it takes to get the car out of the gravel, then there's possibly very, very little running for the team still to come. Because as you can see at the moment, although the driver is out of the car, Romain Andriolo, he will go to the medical centre just for a check. We now have the snatch vehicle on its way, but that has only just started to move, and therefore until the car's out of the gravel, we can't even think about getting the session resumed. And it's not just moving that car, it's putting it somewhere safe, it's getting that snatch vehicle back out of harm's way. You can't leave that in an exposed place. So 14 minutes as we stand at the moment, and it's going to take a good few minutes to get everything sorted.
Yeah, it's touch and go, and a lot of these teams would have been planning as the tyres get older in their life, there's less learning to be had from them. They probably were looking for the end of the session to be their pit stop practice, make sure they're all tied in. So some of these teams might have to go into the race without doing a live pit stop, because you're not going to do it in qualifying, and that's your last session before the races. So it's going to be hard for some of these teams, and they're going to want to get out there and make sure they can at least get a couple of goes doing it in heat at the moment. Yes, all of these teams practice their pit stops and their driver changes, but until you get the car driving at you at 50 kilometers an hour and the heat of the battle, it doesn't quite flow the same.
Now, let's head to the pit lane. Vincent Abril shares with Alessio Rivera. That is the car that is the fastest at the moment, and a happy man indeed. So Vincent Abril in the pit lane. He's with Bryn Lucas.
Must be happy with your work so far here. You said to me that practice for you earlier on was to remind yourself of Brands Hatch, but it is all going very well for you.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's great to be back in Brands. It's great to be back in Sprint. Last time here was 2019, so you know, it's one of those tracks that fortunately we still have in Europe, where you have to respect a little bit and build your speed up to the maximum. It's still never perfect. You also think, I can always be a bit faster here and there, but I think I was very pleased with the way the session went. Obviously, when you're first in this tight and competitive field, it means that you're doing a good job. So thanks to the team, thanks to Ferrari and IF for providing a great car. And yeah, no, very excited for today and tomorrow, especially.
5 years on from the last time you were here, what part of the circuit suddenly reminded you that you were back at Brands? Was there one area, paddock, for example?
Well, it's funny because the last time I came here was with when I was a Mercedes at the time, and but I also remember the Bentley years where we were sitting on the other side and with a big car. That track was very tough. I remember it was tricky. I'm not saying it's not now, but it's yeah, it's. I think this whole track, it's all together. You have some slow speed, some high speed, which makes it, you know, very complete. And obviously the section at the forest. Even I don't do many track walks these days, but obviously we went with Alessio because it's his first time, and it's you're still like, wow, we still race here, and that's good to see. So congrats, GT World Challenge.
So far, so good. Well done.
Cheers.
Alessio Rivera, debut Brands Hatch. Vincent Abril back for the first time since 2019. The drivers do love this circuit, and you can see why. I know this phrase old school gets trotted out a lot, but it is so different from so many of the modern generation of circuit. The modern generation of circuits, current Formula One tracks, have their many strengths, and many of the new circuits all have their features, but Brands Hatch has a totally different set of features.
Yeah, and as we strive to improve safety, which is obviously the #1 goal for motorsport in a lot of aspects, you just desanitize it, and all the curbs are the same. The runoff areas are tarmacs. Here you can see the difference in curbs. There's 3 different types of curbs in one shot there, and it's straight into dirt. And as a driver, that's the satisfying nature when something like Vince Abril there has gone P1. You know you've hooked it up, and you found the balance of risk versus reward, because you can see in the shot now when that risk versus reward ratio is out, it bites real hard, real fast. And as a driver, that's exactly what you want. When you go to these modern circuits, like you said, yes, they're good, yes, they've been well designed, but you just lose that adrenaline feel, and believe it or not, pounding round can even get a bit monotonous, whereas here, your eyes are open without a blink for an hour straight.
Another circuit where there's not a huge amount of margin for error at given points is Spa, and of course tickets on sale for the CrowdStrike 24 Hours of Spa last weekend of June. It's a mega festival of sports car racing, and if you've not been before, I would commend it to you. The Corvette number 24 sitting in the pit lane of Mathis Lismont. Jesse Salmonaltio, the other driver, and there's a more traditional Corvette shape. Definitely you can compare and contrast there.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it, to see where they've gone, and Corvette have won so much in motorsport with that layout of car, but this most recent one they've had to go mid-engine. I've raced and know Oliver Gavin very well, factory driver obviously at Corvette, and did so much of development, but yeah, basically the arms races forced them to go mid-engine in pursuit of performance across the board, and one car with a front engine that's probably a bit shorter than it was is that Ford Mustang. Marshall's doing a good job sweeping up, snatch vehicle getting away. Got 9 minutes remaining. There's a couple of exits that recovery van could take. It's really if the Armco barrier is okay. You can see the circuit workers there as well in their van. So we've got a chance here, I think, of maybe going green for the last 4 or 5 minutes. It's then if the race director thinks it's worthwhile, because we have such a tight schedule here with all the restrictions that we can't really afford timetable-wise to have any more delays.
Remember I told you about number 111 McLaren that was under investigation for a pit lane infringement. What happened was the car had an oil leak and was pushed into its garage. The regulations don't like you being pushed into the garage. You're meant to drive in or be pushed into the garage at the end of a session, and that is the infringement that is being looked at. So the stewards will confirm their decision, but a sort of double whammy really. There's a mechanical problem, as in this oil leak, but then you've also contravened a pit lane regulation. 12th in the times the car is, but that may not necessarily be where it is come the end of the session. And the checkered flag is due in 8 minutes time. There is the Mustang making its way back. You can see the damage on the front of it. And talk about how busy a driver is. Look at that for a steering wheel. Drink button, everything else that's in there. There's a lot for drivers to have to factor in.
Yeah, the McLaren now has gone to a 2-stage traction control. So not only do you have to change it on the way in, it's also the way out that's affected with 2 dials. You've got ABS positioning, map position. Look at the dust on the side of that car. We saw Kirchhofer go off, but you see the driver door element there is just covered in dust, and that's going to get everywhere. Whirling for this session, I did see a JCB going to turn 1, so I fear there's some track damage there. 6.5 minutes remaining. I think the best place to be for the rest of this session is where the fans are sat with a cold beer in hand.
That was said with feeling. Right, so quick run through the order. Alessio Rivera the fastest with Vincent Abril. Vincent doing the time earlier. Fastest in gold, Louis Pret and Adam Smalley's McLaren. Fastest in silver, number 10 Mercedes of Aurelien Panis, and now Cesar Gazot, who brought the car into the pit lane. Paddock Hill Bend up at the top of the shot is the incident zone, and it's first of all car out of harm's way, then you can go and sort out the barrier damage. The car is off the track, coming back into the pit lane, in fact, on the flatbed. The nice thing is that you can not just do the Indy circuit, but even that has a cut through. So the car coming in, if you like, through the back door to the pits. And in the meantime, the team in race control looking at the clock, everybody working on the incident at paddock, trying to make sure those barriers are back in place. But for the moment, the car controllers stand ready. I suspect it'll be a session resume on short notice to try to get people out as quickly as possible. 6 minutes and change on the clock. The HRT, Haupt Racing Team, operates that Ford Mustang. And Sean Breslin, the British former racer who looks after the team, can tell us about that Mustang. He's with Bryn.
Well, Sean Paul Breslin, we're waiting for the car to come back. Nervously looking on at the moment, as we'd expect. What have you heard from the driver? What have they said to you?
Firstly, the driver said he's okay, that he had a crash in turn 1. Seems to have braked maybe a bit later, but doesn't look like anything too crazy, so we have to investigate really what happened. But yeah, he's gone straight on at the turn and into the wall a bit.
You've seen the images from the TV as to the damage itself. What are you expecting for getting it repaired for later on?
It looks quite more than what we could achieve to get it ready today. So, yeah, we have to see when the car comes back what's going on.
Thanks very much.
Sean Paul Breslin, who was with Hubert Haupt when Hubert came to Black Falcon. And effectively, HRT is a second generation of Black Falcon. Black Falcon as a team does still survive, but lots of the engineering brains trust went with Hubert Haupt to start his team, and they have forsaken Mercedes AMG in favour of the Ford Mustang for this year. So it does look damaged, certainly. This is how the damage was sustained.
Yeah, so we're saying a bit late on the brakes. Looks okay, just doesn't want to turn in, and as a driver, you look at that and you go, why haven't we turned to the right more? But if the rear of the car feels loose, turning right at that moment is the worst thing you want to do. So you're trying to have a balancing act of keeping rear grip and front grip in sync, and that's basically what's happened there.
The session will not resume. The barrier damage will take too long, so the session is over. That's a very, very big impact indeed, and it looks for a moment as though it's going to topple over onto its side, doesn't it? So a lot of energy has gone through the car. The barrier lands atop it, but a really, really big impact, that, and the session will not be resumed. So that is it as far as pre-qualifying is concerned. And now the teams think, okay, well, we didn't quite achieve everything we needed to in that session because we lost effectively 15 minutes worth.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of running when you've only got 2 hours of practice before qualifying. And I think the problem is there, can you just see that box section poking out of the front of that Mustang? The other side, the chassis leg, that is, I think will be tweaked. And I think that's what Jean-Paul Breslin is fearing about, is that that's just being pulled out of alignment and everything hangs off that. Those chassis legs are instrumental to how the front of the car all comes together. And because it wasn't a straight-on hit, it was quite a glancing but big blow, I think everything's going to be tweaked out of alignment, and that's why he's not confident about making that car for qualifying.
You've seen that replay a couple of times from on board. You've seen it from outside as well, the impact. Are you thinking something may have caused that mechanically, or are you leaning towards a driver error? I know it's a tough one to call.
Yeah, I don't see something breaking, personally. I think it is just a misjudgment, trying to carry more speed. We've seen the car go through the gravel trap already at that point, so I'm not ruling anything breaking out, but my initial feeling is it's just a small driver error which has led to a bigger issue later on in the corner. So
the fastest time for number 51 Ferrari from AF Corsa, Alessio Rivera, Vincent Abril's car, 1 minute 23.754. Not as quick as they were doing this morning. Now, okay, maybe the cars were heavier, maybe they were doing something different in terms of the run plan. And, of course, we lost those 15 minutes at the end where people might have thought about a dummy qualifying effort. But it is Ferrari top, whereas it was Mercedes-AMG top earlier on in the day. And as I say, the session is not going to be resumed, so the drivers now will head back to the transporters and go and look at data and have a debrief, and the mechanics will get the cars ready for qualifying. This is the order at the end of pre-qualifying. Vincent Abril ahead of Ben Green, Sven Muller's Porsche third, then Thomas Neubauer fourth ahead of Sandy Mitchell and Jordan Pepper. Mauro Engel seventh, you just saw him being interviewed a moment ago for the fans trackside, ahead of Louis Pret, Gilles Magnus, and then Calvin van der Linde to round out the top 10. Gold topped by the Adam Smalley Louis Pret McLaren, and silver topped by Aurelien Panis and Cesar Gazot for Boots and VDS with the Mercedes-AMG. So Ferrari, McLaren and Mercedes-AMG, the three brands topping the different classes. How many within the magic second? Okay, there are 30 cars, 24 of them are covered by less than a second, and still those two WRT BMWs tied to the 1,000th on a time. The number 30 BMW and treble 7 of Jens Klingmann and Alfazl Al-Zubayr. So, shows how competitive it is between the BMWs at Team WRT, that's for sure. Alessio Rivera and Vincent Abril topped the times at the end of pre-qualifying, and now the fascination comes for the two qualifying stanzas that we have, because the first part of qualifying will determine the grid for race one. Second part, with a different driver, will sort out the grid for race two. And of course, the teams have to nominate which is driver one and which is driver two. So that means that you're going to have the likes of, for example, Lucas Auer up against Arthur Leclerc, up against Alessio Rivera in one session, Mauro Engel, Vincent Abril in a second, for example. Alessio Rivera then, new to Brands Hatch. What does he think about the place? Let's find out. He's with Bryn Lucas.
Well, it sets it up nicely for you guys. You put in such a decent performance there in this pre-qualifying round. Does it set it up perfectly for qualifying later?
Yeah, this morning we struggled a bit in the free practice one with the setup. Now we changed something and it was much better, I have to say. Especially on this track where you have, I mean, the qualifying is everything. You have to start in pole or in the front rows because overtake is almost impossible. So I think we are in the right window, and we're looking good for qualifying.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alessio Rivera, I think enjoying himself at Brands Hatch, but that's the easy part. The really hard yards come in qualifying, where he's got to deliver a time. So the Ferrari fastest, 14,000th of a second between the Rovera and Abril car, and the similar, but run by a different team, Ferrari of Konsta Lapalainen and Ben Green. So it is Ferrari 1 and 2 at the end of pre-qualifying here at Brands Hatch. Let's look at the highlights of that truncated session. It was stopped early because of barrier damage, and when the cars went pouring out initially, a good effort being put in the Gold Cup Ferrari of Chris Lallam. Mauro Engel and Lucas Au, the reigning Sprint Cup champions indeed, winners here last year, looking quick. Mauro Engel handing the car over to Lucas Au. Lots of the teams cycling through pit stops, including the GRT Grasser racing team of Jordan Pepper in number 63, along with Luca Engschler. Ferraris, though, looking good. Vincent Abril, really quick early doors. So too was the Porsche of Sven Muller, and Sven Muller would, with Patrick Niederhauser, be third come the end of pre-qualifying. Second to the Emil Frey run Ferrari, Ben Green and Konsta Lapalainen. Ben Green doing the hard yards early on, and then when Romain Andriolo went off the road at paddock and very nearly rolled, that was a red flag, partly because the car was in a dangerous place, but also because of barrier damage, and that could not be repaired in time, meaning that the Alessio Rovera Vincent Abril Ferrari was fastest at the end of pre-qualifying.